Having sex with an online partner is easy to learn. I'll show you how to reach a cyber sex climax. We'll also visit others who have mastered the art of one-handed typing. So let's get started. So I'm just kind of gonna get a general idea of who's here, what's going on. Now let's see if we can find someone interested in having a little cyber sex. I'm gonna put, I'm very horny, and I'm looking for some good cyber sex. Are you interested? Okay, and click send and wait for a response. And he puts yes with lots of S's.
That these are some wild nights, and it doesn't get any wilder than when you get with, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savsu, the rated R radio star, the man that some call, the most interesting anarchist alive today, and we're ready to get in some tech with it, baby. But I tell you, when it gets wild nights like this, when you're talking about things like that, in fact, that little video was from the 1990s, and it was it was a totally real, instructional video about how to get into cybersex, and we might get into that a little bit later on, perhaps during our tech history segment, but we got so much more to get into. But baby, when it gets into wild lights like that, they call the Golden Stallion, they say he's the leader of the nuts, and I said, baby, I'm the head cashew. You better believe it. Oh, yeah. This is where we get crazy. This is where we get the wild nights. Oh, I hope you love that little song. One of my favorite songs, actually by just one of my top-notch artists that I've loved for, actually not that long. I love the style for so long, but I didn't learn about him until just a couple of years ago. Boy, I wish I did. But that album's from the 1990s, late 80s, 90s. Kane Roberts. God damn, if you want to hear some good shit. This guy's only done 2-3 albums, but they're fantastic. That's off of Saints and Sinners' first track, Wild Nights. Phenomenal. But you're not here to hear the music. At least not that kind of music. You're here to hear the melodious tech news that only the Golden Stallion delivers every single week. I'm here for you, baby. And so why don't we start breaking into it? Got a ton to cover this week. Some fun stuff, some not so fun stuff, perhaps. And maybe there's something where we might not have an exact conclusion to. But I guarantee you're going to love it. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. Get all the energy here right on Sovryn Tech. Now, this, okay, slowing it down. What I'm going to get into, and I know this is going to be super controversial. I'll get it right out of the gate. Of course, what the hell don't I say that isn't controversial? But we're going to list off, which I haven't done yet. The past few years on Sovryn Tech, I have done, at the end of a year, I have done a person of the year for Sovryn Tech. And in the past, we've had Aaron Schwartz. We've had one that I wish I could take back, which is Satya Nadella. And we've had others, but I'm going to announce the 2016 Person of the Year, and I think people are going to be shocked. But we'll save it. We'll get into that later. Ooh. And of course, like I said, I mean, the little intro I gave you there actually will be very appertinent to what we're going to be getting into later. And we might do, if I have time, we'll see if I have the time, I'm going to get into a small series of bests of 2016, which I've done here and there in various years on the show, where I was like, all right, what was the best book? What was the best movie? What was the best this? And maybe I'll get into that later, but I got some other subjects I want to talk about too, especially during the climax. I want to talk about, I have a topic I want to get into that a Sovryn Tech listener actually requested that I get into due to recent appearances that I've made on a podcast that I enjoy, the School Sucks podcast with a very dear friend of mine, Brett Venat. And Stephanie, the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy was on as well for that. We've been doing a series called The Empathon. And so I always love, getting the opportunity to be on other podcasts, and especially, School Sucks. So we'll see how everything shapes up, but I'll get into that later on. Another thing, if you did not hear, now it came out a little bit later than we usually release. We usually release Sex and Science Hour on Friday, which is the other podcast that I'm on regularly, weekly. If you did not hear this week's, holy fucking shit. In fact, we're going to kind of cover in our main story, we're going to cover one story of some similar ground, but I want to break more into it on this show. But if you didn't hear it, we had the one and only, another person that I consider a good friend, Andreas Antonopoulos on the show, and with Stephanie and I, and it was a hell of a time. What a great show was doing that. So if you haven't listened to that, you can find it. If you just go to sovryntech.com, you will find, I also post on sovryntech.com all of the Sex and Science Hour episodes, along with of course, all the main episodes of Sovryn Tech, and of course, all the Patreon-only episodes get posted there as well if you become a Sovryn Tech patron, which sovryntech.com takes you right to the Patreon page, so that you can jump on board with that. And before I get into, we were just talking about the climax coming up. Well, before you can climax, you got to have foreplay, right? So before we get into the foreplay, which is where we cover all the little tech stories of the week, before we get into that, I do just want to say a hearty, and I mean this, a heartfelt thank you to so many new patrons. In fact, like I notify on various social media whenever I get a new patron, like on Twitter or wherever else, and I let people know, I do a common themed post where it'll say, ding, new Sovryn Tech, subscriber on Patreon and everything. And then I come up with something sexy to say after the fact, like, a succubi gets her wings, or a succubus, I should say, gets her wings, things like this, or an elf gets her, thigh-high boots. And like people were really amazed this week at how many times I was making those posts, sometimes multiple times a day. So thank you so much. Welcome, to the cabal, folks. Welcome to Sovryn Tech. You are part of the resistance, baby, as John Connor would say, or as maybe Princess Leia would say. Woo. So anyway, enough of that. Thank you for becoming a patron. If you want to become a patron, it's just $1 a month, at least. Most people do more, and thank you for that, but at least $1 a month, and you get access now to hundreds of hours of content. In fact, we're up over 50 episodes now of Patreon-only content. And people, I get the comments from people. They loved it. They loved the one I did about the VPN breakdown. I get to go really knee deep because I can spend time on only one or two. I can spend time on a couple of subjects. You can ask me what you want me to talk about. I do Q&A episodes. So much fun. I love doing it. I love getting to connect at a deeper level with listeners. So if you want to become a patron, please do so. Just go to sovryntech.com. All right, let's get into the foreplay, baby. And wow, something, I think I mentioned this last week. I had said that how people got really excited about some of the websites that I have been recommending that people check out. And there are a lot that are really, really worth looking into. And I've put a lot of these websites, if they're ones that I think are great resources for people to go back to, I keep putting them in the appendix on the show notes for each episode. And of course, you can find the show notes at sovryntech.com. Or if you go to the SoundCloud page, you can find them there too. That's also where you can download episodes if you don't want to just put it in your RSS feed. And so I like now really the appendix for every episode of Sovryn Tech is getting really long because there's so many resources there, along with, of course, Sovryn Tech sponsors are also listed there. But check these out. And the one I want you to check out this week, because people thought, they loved, especially that VPN website that I recommended and some others. Check this one out. It's privacytools.io. And this is a very slick, very basic, very simple site that covers a lot of, well, I mean, it's in the name, privacy tools. So there is also a breakdown of VPNs. There's a description of a lot of different things, like how does mass surveillance work in different countries, which is interesting, and kind of the legality around that. I mean, this is an absolute education on a page. It's phenomenal. They talk about what are warrant canaries, which Sovryn Tech has its own warrant canaries as well, at least on my website, zog.ninja, which is actually going through a major update right now. But don't worry, the warrant canary is not going anywhere that's on that site. Browser recommendations. I mean, it just goes knee deep into all the different add-ons you want to get and extensions you want to get for your browser and everything. This is a phenomenal little resource to look through. Privacytools.io. And if you want to email them and, just tell them, thank you, for doing it, for creating the site. And if you want to let them know that you heard about it through the Golden Stallion, I would appreciate that as well. Let them know you heard about it on Sovryn Tech. So just an awesome website to check out. I mean, it covers so much ground. It's almost as good, maybe even in some ways better than the first website I had recommended, which is ssd.eff.org, SSD standing for Surveillance Self-Defense, not Solid State Drive. And I really recommend checking this out. So take a peek in the appendix of the show notes for the past few episodes of Sovryn Tech, and you can find a lot of these great resources. And I mean, they are great fucking resources. So you're gonna want to do it. Now, this next website, okay, I am going to tell you about as a warning. And I want you. There is action that I think that, in my opinion, you should take. My opinion. And the website is, it's familytreenow.com, just how it says. I put it, it's in the appendix of the show notes as well. Actually, what's the link that's in the appendix of the show notes is the guide of how to get, how to opt out, how to remove yourself from this website. Now, I talked about this to some depth in this past week's Q&A episode, because I didn't want to wait until Saturday. I mean, I shared it on social media as well, but I didn't want to wait for people to hear about this and to do something about it. What this website is, what it bills itself is, familytreenow.com, is effectively, it's like ancestry.com, where it's supposedly like kind of a genealogy site. But there's some key differences here. Okay, first off is that you don't have to have an account on it for your information to be on it. Okay, and we're not, now, yes, they're definitely taking from public records, but there's the possibility, because it's not well described on the website of how they're getting all the information that they have, there's the possibility that there's other ways that they're getting it, whatever, okay? Regardless, they have a ton of information. And this is the thing, is that they have a ton of information, all right, where, I mean, like, I typed in my name, and it had so many of the places that I've lived. It has so much family. I mean, I have a gigantic Jewish family, so, not a shock. But as to where some other people that I was looking into for, say, to delete them from and everything, it really didn't have much on them. So it varies as to how much information there is about you. But here's the thing, is that this site is totally free, is largely totally free to use. I guess there's at a certain point where there is a premium, like a version that you can, a service that you can, pay money for. But the bulk of the stuff that usually with like Ancestry.com and some of these other ones, usually you have to pay up front, which kind of creates a filter of stalkers and identity theft, credit card theft, and all this different stuff, from getting to you, because it's just not cost effective for them to do. When it's totally free, like it is with familytreenow.com, very, very different story. Very different story. And that's kind of the real problem with this. It's not that this kind of site doesn't exist elsewhere, because it does. It's not like this kind of information doesn't exist elsewhere, because it does, kind of like Spokio and some others. The problem is that this is completely free, and it's really thorough, and it's very easy to use. And so I think a lot of, shall we say, malcontents or bad actors could really use this against people. In fact, even... And it, depending upon your interpretation of this, whether or not this is, malicious or a bad actor or whatever. But how I heard about this, I was listening to This Week in Tech, which is one of the few podcasts I make sure I listen to every week. And on that, they had Becky Worley on, who Becky Worley has really been in, the tech journalism game for a good long while. And she's actually, I personally, I think she's a fine person. In fact, I'd love to have her on the show at some point. But I mean, she's on Good Morning America. I mean, she's kind of a big deal, but she was talking about it. And she said, and I thought this was, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, this ability, I see how it worked out for you, but then how could this be used by somebody else to do something like really, really fucking malicious? And she apparently had a tenant at some point that, that was renting out a property of hers or whatever. And that person, like, at some point stopped paying her. In fact, maybe it was a substantial amount of money. And she could never find the guy. And so she used FamilyTreeNow.com this is like a decade later, to find this guy, and come to find out he lived within like 15 minutes of where she was. And so she used that information from FamilyTreeNow.com to go after this guy, send court orders and all this other stuff. Now you can say, well, this guy should have paid up. Fine. But then how could this be used in, just how much thinking does it take to recognize just how malicious, how this could be used maliciously against people who maybe don't owe shit, but you just have some psychotic person, taking advantage of the database. So now removing yourself from it, again, the instructions are in the link because they're pretty sneaky about it. In fact, that's concerning in itself is how kind of not difficult, but how sly FamilyTreeNow.com is about, giving you the opportunity to opt out of it. Because you have to click this privacy, the word privacy at the bottom, and then it shows their whole privacy policy, but they don't normally a link. Okay. Normally like an HTML link will be like a blue, or it'll be some other color to let you know that it's a link. But where you need to click to be able to remove yourself, they really didn't change the color at all. So you can barely tell that it's a link. That's why you want to go to, in fact, the article's from Good Housekeeping of all things, amazingly, where you can find out how to opt out of this website. And you will opt out. Like, I've already done it. It's out. I've done it for some others, and they're all out of there. It takes about 48 hours, but I recommend doing this. Now you could say, well, is this just confirming for FamilyTreeNow.com that they were right on the nose? Is this a problem? Blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the thing is that you don't have to have an account on the site. Okay. So anybody, if somebody wanted to take the time, they could delete everybody from FamilyTreeNow.com. At least if they follow up with a privacy policy and they actually delete people, which so far, as far as I've seen, they do. So no, it's not proof of anything because anybody could delete anything. I mean, you could assume, sure, but then you're assuming. This is ugly. I don't like this. Is it just public information? Anybody can find that out? Sure, but it's not in some fucking, well categorized database, or usually it costs money to get your hands on these kinds of records, right? This is very different. So I think this is actually I think it's concerning. So I would myself, I already did. I'd remove myself from it. I mean, just without even thinking, I was like, yeah, no, I'm getting rid of myself. Now, of course, it's not going to protect you from the NSA, CIA, AT&T, FBI, right? All the government alphabet soup organizations. Woo! No, it's not. Of course not. But that's a whole different ballgame. But from, some regular Joe or, some Jamoke out there, I mean, please, by all means, remove yourself and make it hard for them if they really want to stalk you or, commit identity theft or something along these lines. So there you go. There's your warning. Again, we're in episode 209. So just look in the appendix of the show notes. You'll find that Good Housekeeping article that does an excellent job of describing or of laying out exactly how to opt out of this website. So, all right, let's get into some other opening news here. And this is kind of a funny one that actually really has a point. I mean, it validates what a lot of, shall we say, security researchers and people in the crypto space like to say quite often. But Cellebrite, that's Cellebrite. Of course, this is the company that, first off, they've been hacked / cracked. Okay, I consider hacking a heroic act. I consider cracking a malicious act. This is a very old delineation that has been used in the tech world for some time. So, depending on how you look at this, I suppose, whether or not you think it's a hack or a crack. But Cellebrite, they have their databases, servers, all that good stuff have been cracked into or hacked into, I guess. Again, depends on your definition. And what Cellebrite makes is a very unique product. And this product is something we've talked about before on Sovryn Tech in various HackSec segments, where it is a device that effectively allows you to plug in a smartphone or even some other devices, and you are able to read all of the information and even copy off a lot of the information that exists on a smartphone. And these things can, to some degree, get through various forms of encryption. Okay. Now, this company obviously sells to what? Governments, of course. And not just the U.S. government either, but now there's evidence that they've sold off to the UAE. Perhaps I think Russia was one of them, and some others. Law enforcement agencies love the shit out of these guys. Okay. But now, depending on who exactly, and we're not entirely sure who exactly hacked into, Celebrate's databases. Okay, but now they have all of this information that has been collected for years by law enforcement and whatever, other agencies were using Celebrate, on various devices. And now they have all that. Now, the irony here is that, law enforcement agencies would use Celebrate's devices under the claim of course, what? The abstract notion, and frankly ridiculous notion, of safety, right? Safety for society. That's where it's ridiculous. I mean, getting into personal safety is a totally legitimate and fine thing to be concerned about. Individual safety. But, safety en masse, right? Which is, as elusive as it is crazy. Okay, to think that you can in any way promise that sort of thing or even achieve it. And in so doing, they have created an incredibly insecure database, right? One that's been hacked into now. But now all of that data that was all about keeping people safe is now, somebody has their hands on all this. And it really, what it says to me with the Celebrate hack is that it just proves, look, you have to make devices as impregnable as possible. Okay, you want your smartphones to be encrypted as possible. Your, everything, your laptops, whatever, have all this shit be encrypted. Yes, there's the danger of the fact that, somebody could commit some kind of crime, perhaps, that, that you wouldn't be able to really figure out much without Celebrate's device that cracks into somebody's phone, right? But at the same time, you also make sure that there's never this centralized database of so much personal information from everything from credit card numbers to, address. So much emails, all this shit that now just one other body now has complete access to, obviously without the permission to Celebrate, or at least as far as we know, right? Which do you want? Do you want that centralized database that can affect hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of people? Or do you want the devices that really, largely only affects one person at a time just because you can't crack into them or something? I don't want centralized databases whatsoever. That's fucking terrifying, because this very thing happens, including within law enforcement. And it got, all this information was effectively taken from law enforcement, who I thought they were protecting all this shit. I guess not. Yes, Celebrate is more or less a private company, but you get my gist. Who watches the Watchers? Well, right now somebody's watching a whole lot of what the Watchers were watching, and we could go on forever about that. But I just thought the Celebrate crack, that was just, it just goes to show, look, make encryption that people cannot break into. Just do that, because then these sweetened targets like Celebrate's databases and servers, don't exist. And that way, if somebody wants to, because this all could have been done by one person, or one person now has so much information on, again, potentially hundreds, thousands, millions of people, as to where if devices were made to where Celebrate couldn't crack into them, and you could create encryption, you could implement encryption, that allows for that. You could create devices that kind of allow for that. Then that wouldn't be an issue at all. And I know what some people are going to say. They're going to be like, yeah, but there's real criminals out there. There's real psychopaths out there. We gotta be able to read their phones, when the time comes and all that. And then it's like, to prove that they committed some heinous act or something. Not that I think there needs to be such a thing as police, but there used to be such a thing as police work. You used to be able to find criminals without smartphones. So that's bullshit. You don't need that to be able, you don't need access to all these devices, to be able to catch quote unquote criminals. Yeah, this is a huge problem. This is as bad as any other crack. This is as bad as, Target getting hacked, or Ashley Madison, or go down the list. And that's the danger of. I mean, Well, anyway, don't need to spend all the time on that. Let's change it up. Let's get into a little more consumer fun stuff. I just thought that Celebrate crack was so nuts, because these guys are all about security, and then obviously you can't trust them for shit, because even their shit gets hacked into. Oh. Not that I trusted them in the first place, nor did I ever recommend anybody trust Celebrate. Not at all. So, someone else I don't recommend trusting, that's Microsoft. Let's break into what exactly has been going on with them. Now, this is somewhat interesting. Of course, we've talked about this in recent episodes. Microsoft has their Creators Update coming out for Windows 10. This will probably be in March or April of 12,017 by the Holocene calendar. 12,017 HE, the human era. You just add on 10,000 years. Woo! We talked about that 2 episodes ago. A lot of fun. And I said, it's like, yeah, I'm going to start using that dating schema for Sovryn Tech from now on. So anyway, the Creators Update will be coming out, and one of the interesting things that really doesn't necessarily have to do anything with creation or creatives per se, not directly, is that the Microsoft Store, which offers music, in fact, the largest music library in the world. Most people don't know that because, they're on Spotify or Google Play Music All Access or whatever, which, whatever, I'm not judging there. But they also offer movies. They offer, obviously, a lot of Windows 10 apps. In fact, it's the only way to get those, universal apps, not software necessarily. You can get that anywhere, but universal apps, you can only get those through the Microsoft Store. And they offer, I think that about covers what they generally offer. It's just music and games, of course. A lot of the, more of the Xbox/Windows 10 exclusive titles, are on the Windows Store. But now they're going to be offering books, and I'm not sure exactly how large of a selection they're going to be offering. There's the potential they could be offering the largest amount of books. Right now, the digital store that offers the largest selection of digital books is not Amazon. It is not Kindle. It is actually Google Play Books. It has the single, by numbers count, largest amount of digital books available. So Microsoft is getting into that game now. You might not have known they weren't already into it, but they're getting into it now. I don't know. I don't necessarily see the point. I mean, I want there to be multiple stores that exist for digital books, but I think these are still going to be DRM protected, which that's horseshit. I mean, the main reason that I ever purchase books from the Kindle store is because I know I can strip the DRM from them. Now, these are going to be EPUBs that'll be available through that, which is similar to what Apple offers through iBooks, as well as what Google offers through Google Play Books. But even when you buy EPUBs from them, I don't think they're unprotected EPUBs. Like I think they're, I could be wrong about that, but I've never really purchased from any of those stores to exactly find out. And perhaps I should. But Microsoft is doing this. Now, the irony is that pretty much everything Microsoft sells, they usually make software for that can read it. And this is one of the more interesting things with this bit of ebook business, is that Microsoft doesn't really have an ebook reader. So what they've done, and what's going to be more, it's already out for some fastering users with Windows 10, but what they're going to make available with the Creators Update is that Microsoft Edge, their web browser, will have this reading ability. Now, I've got 2 answers on this as to whether or not you can, kind of like with Google Play Books, where can you upload your own EPUBs and then kind of read them anywhere? Will they be cloud stored? Some have said yes. Others have not so clearly said no. So I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be, possible. The only advantage here, I mean, and we're going to have to see what this ends up looking like in March. I mean, I'm glad that there's another option for EPUBs. I don't know that Microsoft is going to do any serious money off of this. I mean, really, Amazon's Kindle store just so has the market cornered. If they're delivering unprotected books, I could see this being a little more interesting because, I'm all about everything being DRM free so that you have actual control of what you put down money for. But yeah, I'm trying to think how I feel about this. I don't see it as being that particularly interesting. I mean, it'd be nice to have that service that could maybe get you away from, say, having so many different accounts. Like you wouldn't have to have an Amazon account, but really, who the hell doesn't have an Amazon account? But this might be a step to get you away from needing a Google account. But what's a little more interesting, I think, and there's no word as to whether or not they're going to have comic books, which is really another place where Amazon is definitely shining. Google Play Books also has that. But there's the chance that one of the more interesting things I think could be that the contract that Audible has, which of course is Amazon, that Audible has with Apple, to where Apple is the kind of the iBook store, or iTunes is the only other place that you can really get Audible books besides Audible. I wonder if there's going to be audiobooks getting implemented into the Microsoft Store. Does it really matter? No, because most people can just download, the Audible app. In fact, the Audible app on Windows 10, the Universal app, is great. I mean, it's a great fucking app. So this seems kind of redundant, other than, again, the only potential interest here is again, you don't have to have more accounts if you're already a Windows user, particularly Windows 10. Like I've said, software minimalism and account minimalism uses little software as necessary, okay, because every new piece of software is a potential exploit, and then have as few accounts as necessary, because every other account is, again, another possible exploit. So if everything was under kind of Microsoft's, you're under your Microsoft account, great. Of course, yes, is that a centralized database where everything's in that one spot in Microsoft? Sure, but it's kind of locked down. And also, sort of the interesting thing is not that the Kindle store is going to go anywhere, or I can't imagine why the Google Play Bookstore would go anywhere, even though Google, and we're going to get into this, Google has been shutting down services that, they shut down services right or left, so I never count on anything Google makes. As for Microsoft, obviously their whole life's blood is based around services that, that have been around for decades. Make no mention of games for Windows Live, right? But this could be interesting because, a lot of, these digital content services, I don't see the numbers to where they're making whatever company runs them a whole ton of money. Amazon excluded from that, though even they get cheated out of a lot of money quite a bit. And really it's a cheat. So the only place I can see for competition in these spaces are not from like Scribd and some of these other ones. It has to be within, kind of within these tech giants where there's any kind of competition, because they're the only ones that can eat the cost of these services being out there. Like, I mean, the music streaming services, nobody's really making a whole ton of money off of that. I mean, Spotify, I don't even think they're really making a ton of money. They just look good by growth numbers, right? And even that they're sort of falling away from, and they're diversifying their business because the music alone isn't doing it, right? That's why Spotify is getting into podcasts and a bunch of other things. Even though that's a whole other conversation to be had. So I could see some benefit in the fact that, Microsoft can afford to run these things at a loss, and to make them, to make ebooks and a lot of this different stuff, perhaps even audiobooks and all that available, and to be somewhat of a competitor against Amazon, is only, I mean, that it's not only a good thing, but it's kind of a good thing. So, but this is coming down the pike. I mean, if you're somebody that has relied heavily on Microsoft services, and I know I have a lot of listeners that do, this is something that might appeal to you, but really only if you're just trying to stick within that Microsoft ecosystem. And maybe, I mean, what really needs to happen with this, I'm spending more time on this than I wanted to, because it's really not that interesting of a story, but what they really need to do is combine their bookstore with, say, Microsoft Word, and create an interesting platform, kind of like Amazon does with the Kindle store, to where people can be making their own books and get them out there. But are they going to have the audience for that? No. But even if it's like a creative, even if it's some kind of like content help venture that Microsoft was engaging in to get people into creating stuff, like writing novels and short fiction and all that, then that could be a really good thing. And to have an easy store that people could publish to, that could be a good thing. That could be interesting, because Microsoft is making all of those tools available. I mean, even if you're making a book for Kindle, even if you go through the instructions of what it takes to make a Kindle book, it says, use Microsoft Word or something else, but it's still the industry standard. So there's a play that could happen there, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, enough of that. Speaking of Google services that are effectively getting shut down, Google Contributor, which this was supposed to be the alternative to web ads, to advertisements on websites and all this. You could pay anywhere from $1 to however many dollars to Google, and if the website you went to was using the Google ad platform, it would replace it with no ads. Like Google would automatically replace it if you're logged in with your account, would automatically replace it with no ads. But they would give a portion of the money to the website that was working within the Google contributor program. This is now being shut down. Apparently there's going to be something else that'll get put in its place. But I don't know. I don't mind the idea so much. I think it's far better than the completely insecure nature of going to websites and them serving ads and all this. And it could you could kind of create an ecosystem of websites that, are Google, that work within Google Contributor. But it was sort of set to fail. Like really, the way advertisements are pushed in general, that whole model has to change, in my opinion. Now, I don't know exactly how to change that other than having very non-intrusive ads with sponsors like I do on my own website. But yeah, this is a tough nut to crack, but Google Contributor, while I think the idea is interesting, obviously its implementation wasn't working out the best, and that's why it's getting shut down. Not a shock that Google shuts things down. Now, for another story in the foreplay here, Google is actually expanding something. and this is a quick shot. So a couple of years ago, Google, or AlphaGoog, it should be alphabet/Google, AlphaGoog announced that they are creating what's called Android One smartphones. And these are smartphones designed for markets within developing countries. Okay. Like working within India and maybe some other, countries in Africa, things like this. Okay. And they've been kind of popular. And the idea is they're sort of like a poor man's Nexus device. And I don't mean poor man as an insult by any means. But, it's supposed to be a poor man's Nexus device where it's getting updates from Google, security updates on a regular basis and all this. But it's meant to gear towards, developing countries, or what people used to call, and I don't want to call them this, but it's going to be part of the punchline. So you got a punchline coming. Woo, burying the lead. No, but third world countries. Now, an announcement just came out that in partnership with LG, I think, and perhaps some other companies, Google is going to start releasing Android One phones in the United States. So what does that mean? Is the United States a third world country now? Woo! Way to go, President Trump! As soon as I read the headline, I was like, oh, because, of course, America's a developing nation. And I thought that was funny as hell. I crack myself up, folks. I do. I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't mind this. I love the idea of there being Android phones that get more regular security updates. And I think they have a guarantee of 18 months or something with the Android One phones. And I've seen ones in other parts of the world. And they're actually, they're not bad phones at all. So it's really not that bad of a thing. I just thought it was so funny that this is an entire program that was meant to, that's designed to get sold, again, to developing markets, developing countries. And for it to suddenly need to be, or for it to be considered worthwhile to sell in the United States, that doesn't speak very well of the United States. And of course, the Golden Stallion will never speak well of the United States. So there you go. Woo! Anyway. But kind of in the same vein, but something that actually bolsters stuff I've been writing about for a while. And that is the Dark Android project, of course, can be found at darkandroid.info, and I have some interesting plans for that coming up in the very, very near future. But one of the things that I recommend with the Dark Android project, which is all about creating mobile devices, Android-based mobile devices that have privacy, security, anonymity, all that, baked into them. So I would, for a year, I was blogging by the day for the Dark Android project. And I would recommend at various points, various devices to use. Now, I recommend using, with the Dark Android project, in its quote-unquote purest form, I recommend using a tablet, not a smartphone. Because, again, if you're going for real privacy and security and anonymity and all that, smartphones have SIM cards. SIM cards are a security exploit, just straight up. We already know that, Gemalto and others have effectively handed over the keys. okay, to get access to what goes through, a lot of their SIM cards, and they put out most of them. So you don't want a SIM card in it. Now, yes, can you take your SIM card out of your smartphone? If you can, great. Then guess what? You've got a dark Android device. Okay, that's the purest form of dark Android. You can apply dark Android principles, okay, to any device you want, SIM card or not, and you're going to be better off just by doing that. And you're going to make things more expensive for the surveillance society that we live in. Okay, but the number one tablet that I've always recommended over the years was the 2013 Nexus 7, the 32 gig version of the Nexus 7 without LTE. That way it doesn't have a SIM card, right? Now, I've recommended some others, some of what Sony has put out, and in fact, this will be true for some of Sony's devices as well. But the other one, the most recent one that I was recommending people buy was from NVIDIA, and that was their Shield K. Their first Shield tablet was a fine purchase, as well as the Shield K1 tablet was a good purchase to get into. And interestingly, both of those devices are on the order of 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years old for the original Shield tablet, and they are both getting updated by NVIDIA themselves to Nougat, to Android 7.0. That's fantastic. I mean, it is so hard to find devices that get that kind of years-long support. Sony also announced that I think the Compact Z3 and some others, which are like their tablets and some of their phones, will also be getting updated to Nougat. And so, I mean, I'm happy to hear this because it's vindicating to me, because I recommended these devices because I said these companies have a good history of support. And you want, especially with Android devices, you want to have the latest security updates and all that come with the latest operating systems. Now, I'm not going to get into a huge conversation of why are there new operating systems every year, because that is a bit of a scam. But security updates are not. They're legit, and so you want those. You don't need a whole new, version number to do that, but that's how it works in the Android world. So both of those devices still very solid purchases, in my opinion, if you're looking for a tablet, especially because they have the latest version of Android that, frankly, most phones don't even have to this day. And this day is January 21st, 2017. So I thought that was cool that they're getting that update. And a lot of the Sony devices were getting updates, too, if you're already in on that. Speaking of Android and, AlphaGoog in general, which is kind of a theme we've been running on here, Google announced that this week that actually they are offering offline search on mobile. Right. How does that work? There's a collective pause. I could hear it, or I could not hear it. Right. The offline search, how this is going to work is that things that you've searched in the past, it's going to start caching them kind of offline. Now, to some degree, I imagine especially the Google app was already doing this, on mobile, on Android in particular. I'm not exactly sure if this is going to be a feature in iOS. However, the point that it brings home to me is that this is maybe the penultimate. No, penultimate means second to last. So ultimate. This is the ultimate step of Google admitting that, guess what? You're not going to have, that connectivity is not everywhere, and that really the cloud, this whole abstract concept of the cloud, okay, has not delivered based upon the promises that they've been making for years. And Google is definitely, the creme de la creme of cloud companies, I think it's fair to say. All of their services that they've built have been based around, this idea of cloud connectivity, of cloud computing and all this. And so, I see this really, it's funny because, again, it's more validation for me on Sovryn Tech. What I've been saying for years is that, look, there's ways to do the cloud right. There's ways to set that up. There's reasons to use it and all that. But this idea of pervasiveness is just not going to happen. And we've noticed over the past couple of years where suddenly Google Docs starts having offline functionality. Even Google Play Music starts having, all these different services start offering a ton of offline functionality. As where before, it just wasn't baked in. It's not that it couldn't have been. It's that their thinking was, oh yeah, the cloud's going to be everywhere. We're always going to need to have online connectivity. The cloud is God. Oh, praise God. Praise. As to where I praise Satan, and he's offline. Woo. And now Google is too. It's that admission that, look, do not trust the cloud completely. Do not rely completely on cloud services. When Google search its fucking self is not going to be entirely an online matter anymore. Point proven. Point proven. I was right. So keep thinking about those offline solutions. Don't be giving everything to the cloud just yet, because, I mean, if Google is going so far as to, even make Google search to some degree work offline, yeah. And it's also hopeful too. I mean, that a company because one of the things that's been developed for a while, and it's not just Google. I think Facebook's doing it. I've talked about that. We've talked about Project Titan. Of course, Google had Project Loon. And there's I talked about what I think Apple has in mind or had in mind with their multi-peer connectivity framework and all this, to where each of these companies is really creating their own internet. It would appear that those ambitions are failing, and good. At least for now, they seem to be failing. We'll see. So I think it's hilarious. It's the ultimate condemnation of the promise of the cloud that Google is now offering a degree of offline search. That's just it's the way I see it. So, let's see. All right, one last bit of news, and then we've got a hell of an opening story that I want to get into. We're going to get into the 2016 Sovereign Tech Person of the Year, and so I want to get into that. But something that I talked about briefly, and this was back in December of 2016, was the Note 7. Of course, this was one of the big stories of 2016, and with the Note 7, so everybody knows they were, there was a problem with the battery. It was faulty batteries, and they were effectively literally blowing up. And there was a bit of what seemed to be a corporate fisticuffs between Samsung and Verizon, where Samsung was telling Verizon, you need to push out this update that more or less bricks these phones. Like, that way people will finally trade them in, because there was some odd, I don't know how many thousands of phones must have still been out in the wild. How many thousands of Note 7s had to be out there. And Verizon said, no, we don't want to do that, because there's people who probably, there might be some people, and we talked about this on Sovereign Tech. I actually gave a little bit of credit to Verizon for not forcing, this final over-the-air update, effectively, from Samsung to shut down the Note 7s, because, there's some people that really, they cannot afford, A, they can't perhaps afford another phone. Who knows what they did to get their Note 7, and B, they really can't just, they can't wait. Maybe some people can't wait a few days to get a new phone, because they'd have to go through the entire, return process, the entire reimbursement process, recall process. And so I gave Verizon a little bit of credit for not being a part of that. But now it seems that really they were just concerned about Christmas. They actually didn't give it, maybe concerned about Christmas sales and whatever else. They didn't really give a shit about the consumer whatsoever, because now they are pushing out where they are blocking the Note 7's ability to make phone calls. And to make it even more so, if you don't turn in your Note 7, and of course they know you have a Note 7 by your IMEI number, right? If you don't turn in your Note 7, they will bill you for the price of the Note 7. They're doing everything they can to get these fucking phones out of people's hands. It's remarkable. Now, the thing to understand here is what I've been saying as we've covered the story over and over again. It's the same point. This can be done. This, pushing out these over-the-air updates that can keep a phone from making phone calls, or even the bullshit with, Verizon being able to I cannot, it's amazing. It's just in the works. Apparently they're not going to do it yet, but that they can even do that to where they could charge you for a phone that you already laid money down for. Okay. But the point being, with the major thing, being the phone calls getting blocked, or the bricking of the phone and all this remotely, right, by a company itself, that being Verizon, through Samsung's machinations or whatever, that they can shut down your phone. Look, understand this, that in the future, not just the Note 7, whatever phone it happens to be, they can do this to any phone. We just got done talking about don't rely on the cloud so much, because even the big boys aren't relying on it so much anymore, because they know that it's not delivering on what it promised. Don't rely so much on your mobile phone, because in the future, there's the very real chance that shit can get shut down. No force required. They're just going to, they just send out an over-the-air update and you're done. That's the real moral of this entire Note 7 story that most people are missing. Everybody else is just like, oh, Samsung screwed. And I'll agree. I think this Samsung has some real problems, with this. Not that their fourth quarter numbers would show it. Apparently they still did very handsomely well, even with this Note 7 debacle, these exploding phones. But that's because, obviously Samsung, I mean, and they didn't. It wasn't just that. Like they had problems with refrigerators and washing machines, right? Washers and dryers and all that. I mean, they have a diversified portfolio, but a good chunk of it's failing. But so I'm kind of shocked myself that their fourth quarter numbers look as good as they do. I mean, they're still doing money. I figured this would have been the end. I mean, you kind of had a trifecta of problems with, so many home appliances and then the smartphone. I mean, shit. How much more in your face could you get with people? But regardless, keep that in mind, is that, this is just proof of what Verizon, Samsung, so many of these companies are technically capable of doing. Okay, it doesn't have to be a cop coming up to you and just snatching your phone out of your hand. It's not necessary. They'll just shut the fucker off remotely. So keep that in mind. Proof it's not conspiracy theory anymore. It can absolutely be done. This happens to be for reasons that to some make sense, but well, it's amazing what gets what can be done in the name of safety, right? Because that's what this is being done in. All right. Speaking of in the name of not so safe, perhaps. I want to get into, and like I said, this is probably going to shock people. But I want to get into, or I guess I should say, our 12,016 Person of the Year, which is a yearly tradition that I've been doing on Sovryn Tech, where it's somebody that has really contributed heavily to, to the tech world and maybe even, personal freedom in general, because that's one of the main things that excites me about tech is its ability to empower the individual and, and by default, giving somebody personal freedom by being empowered, right? And last year's was the one that fucking I just want to take it back, but I won't. But it was Satya Nadella was last year's, and people, they emailed me, said, what? How, you're rooting for Microsoft or something? And the reason I did that was because I really felt in just at that time, the couple of years that Satya had been in charge, and it's still kind of true. There's just been some ugly shit that has pissed me off. He completely transformed that company. I mean, if you need proof that not that they're a political force, but that the evil empire can somehow become a bit more benevolent or at least perhaps chaotic neutral, he did it. I mean, he really did it. Like, Microsoft is not, and we talked about this, in fact, in episode 200, just recently. That was kind of the main message I wanted to get out with episode 200 is, look, we're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about the history of tech. We're going to talk about all these things, and it's important to remember where these companies came from and things they've done in the past. But let's be really clear here that AlphaGoog, Apple, Amazon hasn't changed really. They've just shown their colors. Microsoft, all of them, they are completely different companies today. Apple is not Steve Jobs' Apple, not even remotely like Steve Jobs' Apple, because I dare say that Apple was, wasn't, well, it was tolerable as to where now it's just fucking annoying. And Microsoft, it's a 180. They really are not, it's not Bill Gates walking around as Darth Vader anymore. It's just not. I'm not saying that they're a great company. I'm not saying they do everything right. I'm just saying that I don't really see them as malicious anymore. Not inherently, not so much. Now, the thing that made me want to take back what I said about Satya Nadella was OneDrive Gate, which I talked about on the show, where they were offering, and it's funny because it was the main reason that I gave Satya Nadella Person of the Year, because I thought this was such a bold move, okay? But then they reneged on it, and that was like in 2014, Microsoft announced that with OneDrive, they were going to start offering unlimited storage straight up. As to where Google Drive, Dropbox, all of them, you get so many gigabytes or terabytes or something. Microsoft said, nope, if you're an Office 365 subscriber, which was and still kind of is a great value at like $10 a month, we are going to give you absolutely unlimited storage. And a year later, they totally backpedaled on the whole thing. And in fact, they didn't just backpedal, like they broke the pedals off the bike and they went backwards. They went way backwards. They said, we're not even going to, because before they were offering like 5 terabytes for every family member. They're like, oh, no, we're topping everybody out at 1 terabyte, every single person. And you can't buy more even if you wanted to. That's all the storage you're going to get. Now, an interesting update on that is that my OneDrive still shows 10 terabytes, which was tantamount to unlimited. So I don't know if they've even backed off a little bit on that, and they did offer refunds because, it was crazy because Microsoft was saying that there were people abusing OneDrive, this unlimited amount. Look, if you're telling people it's unlimited, they can use as much storage as they want. If they use that storage, how is that abuse? It's not. You're a liar. And I was so pissed off by that because I thought it really changed things to where now people, I mean, yes, not in a literal sense. There are only so many servers in the world. In a hyper literal sense, it wasn't true. But effectively, for consumers, for the first time, consumers had unlimited data storage accessible to them, especially at an accessible price point. And I said, this changes the world. This changes everything. And it really, it had the potential to do that. Now, I know Amazon offers unlimited storage. I get it. And they haven't reneged on it yet, though. I think it's really just a matter of time. Maybe it's just because they didn't have such a strong user base as Microsoft does, right? And if they did, I really question whether or not they'd offer that. And even then, let's talk Glacier and AWS, baby. And there's so many problems there, okay? But when they reneged on that was such shit, and so I was really ticked off, and that's why I said I wanted to take it away from Satya Nadella, but whatever, we'll leave it. So anyway, yeah, I mean, that was empowering the individual, unlimited storage. That was huge. And then the other things that Microsoft had been doing at the time were, at the time, they had been really supportive of Bitcoin. Of course, it seems they're also getting back into being supportive of Bitcoin again, thankfully, because they've probably seen that Ethereum and a lot of the others just flat out fail or are impractical for what they were promising to deliver and all that. So, there's some building back up going on here with Microsoft, I think. But regardless, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about last year's, the present, the new Person of the Year for Sovryn Tech. And like I said, this is going to shock. And this is actually the first year where the Sovryn Tech Person of the Year is a woman. And the woman in particular that we're talking about is Mistress Harley. And I have a link in the show notes where you can read an entire story about her from Dazed. And this is just from a few days ago of 2017. And it's how men are getting off on women ruining their online lives. And here's the byline. We speak to Mistress Harley, the world's first tech dom and a master of long-distance data domination. Now, instead of me reading this entire story, I'm going to play some videos for you to explain what the fuck is a tech dom. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think this is brilliant. I think this is so cool. So why don't I allow Mistress Harley to explain herself? Mistress Harley, our Sovryn Tech Person of the Year 2016.
Hi, boys and girls. I'm Mistress Harley. I want to answer some of my frequently asked questions, including what is a tech dom? Now, you may know I wrote the book Tech Dom, so you should read the book on Amazon.com on your Kindle. But if you really want to know the answer from the horse's mouth, it's this. A tech dom is a dominatrix like myself that uses high-tech products to monitor, control, manipulate, abuse, and use her slaves, or to use those products to enslave men. Now, I particularly enjoy using desktop sharing software to take over your computer and lock it under administrative controls that only I have the passwords to. Then I install a variety of software like web filters, keyloggers, and other little spy programs to control you and prevent you from undoing my changes and make sure that you never ever look at that nasty porn again. I also go through all your files and make sure that you don't have anything that you shouldn't. And meanwhile, I find out lots of sensitive information about you. I might find out your name or your email address or your Facebook profile or where you live or who you're married to or what you make or where you work or your boss's name. I can find out everything because I'm the tech dom. So this is Mistress Harley answering your questions. What is a tech dom?
Wow. So, if you didn't get her gist, now she is an actual dom, of course, dominatrix, right? She is an actual dominatrix, not just a tech dom. She's also a fin dom, which we're going to get into that in a second. Okay, but the basic gist is, and this isn't necessarily sexual, though as I understand it, it starts to take that turn at points, depending on what her clients want. And at various points, she's had clients up to like 20 clients at a time. And what she does is she's just a very tech savvy, technically knowledgeable, woman that she will, okay, so I'm not necessarily into this. Like, I wouldn't really want this. And we talked about this a little bit on Sex and Science, or, well, quite a bit actually on Sex and Science Hour last night. You can hear Stephanie's thoughts on it, and you can hear Andreas Antonopoulos' thoughts on it as well, and some of mine. But the idea is that you, like, give her the keys to your digital kingdom. And then, like, she, pretty much fucks with you. Not fuck as in, like, ride your dick or scissors you or something, but, like, messes with your head and with, like, she takes over your digital life. And I mean, there's a power dynamic. There's a power exchange, being done there that's a part of some people's kinks and fetishes, right? I mean, for a lot of fetishes, it's for a lot of kinks, it's the very nature of it is, kind of this power over or whatever. And I can imagine some people who would really get off on, like, not being able to, do certain things that they want to do online. Seriously, I can imagine it, to where they'd be into that sort of thing. Okay, now I want to go to another video where she talks about being a fin dom, which is a financial dominatrix, which is another aspect of this. And don't worry, we're going to break down into a lot more of this, and and I'll explain more why I'm giving Mistress Harley, Person of the Year, baby, on Sovryn Tech. So here, let's go to the next video.
Hi, I'm Mistress Harley of MistressHarley.com, and today I just wanted to take a little minute to explain what financial domination is. I've gotten a lot of press recently, abroad in the UK and places like Reveal magazine, about being a financial dominatrix. I've talked a lot about being a tech dom, which means I control your life through your technological devices, but I wanted to do a little Q&A on financial domination. So I was recently on a Swedish radio show, and they asked me what the turn on is with financial domination. If I get turned on by it, if my clients get turned on by it. And the reality of financial domination is that it's about men who get turned on by giving women their money. Sometimes they get something in exchange for that money, like a little hello. Basically, guys don't get much except perhaps a woman's attention. But generally, when they give women their money, they expect nothing in return. And to them, that sacrifice, the humiliation of giving a woman who will never speak to them their money for real, is about the most real-life humiliating experience some men can have. And of course, we all know from weird kinks and fetishes that people get turned on by humiliation. So it's pretty easy to see how financial domination can become a thing. Another one of my FAQs is how much money can a woman realistically make as a financial dominatrix? Well, to be honest, it really varies. But if you're someone like me who's a professional and who's beautiful and who's set up their business to succeed, you can really make a lot of money just by telling men to give it to you. You should see how powerful women are. In the supply and demand economics of the world, attention from beautiful women is in short supply. And men know this. That's why they holler out car windows. That's why they try to pick you up at bars. That's why everywhere a woman goes, she's constantly being harassed by a man. There are always too many men and not enough beautiful women. And so when you realize that you can actually monetize the attention that men pay to you, you turn the dynamics around. Instead of being sexually harassed, I humiliate men and take their money. And honestly, that's a much better reality than just going to bars and humiliating men and shooting them down for free. So, this is Mistress Harley of MistressHarley.com. I am a professional financial dominatrix, a pro dom, and the one and only tech dom.
Did you ever know that anything like that even existed? I'll be honest, like, I am no prude, and I mean, baby, I am no prude. I had no idea. I mean, it doesn't, like, really excite me, but, you know, believe me, I've known guys over the years, like, that would go apeshit for this. I mean, they would be, I mean, she's right. I'm not saying that it, like, I wouldn't necessarily say that being into humiliation, like, I mean, you know, maybe you got some traumas to work through there. I don't know. Okay. But there are people that are into this sort of thing. And like, she's figured out how to, without removing any of her clothes, without, you know, doing much of it. I mean, she doesn't even have to be present to, like, you know, make a living doing this sort of thing, like playing this role, this fantasy role in these people's lives. Now, I don't know. I'm curious. Okay. Maybe I'll ask her myself or something. I'm curious, like, if she ever gets women that want to interact with her. I haven't really seen, in fact, in the article that I have here, it doesn't say that. Now, where she is getting women is that she's actually, like, other women want to know how she does it. And she is going to train them. So then she's also, I mean, what a fucking entrepreneur, because now she's going to make money off of training other women on how to do what she does. I'm in awe over this. You know, how to take, you know, it kind of reminds me, a lot of people talk about how, you know, how the online world, you know, how putting stuff on the internet, marketplaces and whatever else, how it eliminates so much of the danger and maybe even seedier aspects of, well, whatever industry it happens to be. Not to say that, you know, sometimes those reputations that these industries have are not well-deserved at all. Okay, but you know, people talk about that. Well, this is in some ways, this is really like making dominatrix work. I mean, and different aspects of it, obviously tech dom, fin dom, all that, right? I'm sure there's probably other versions that I need to look into or, you know, see what's out there. But it's taking that and, you know, making it completely safe. And I could really see where this would appeal to guys as well. I mean, and her, you know, the way she's talking, the way she's coming off on that, I mean, whether she really feels that way or not or something, I mean, hey, you know, rock and roll. I don't care. Okay. But, you know, I think a lot of guys would be like, oh, I don't even have, like, this person doesn't have to enter my life, that, you know, whatever, like, this can all kind of be done remotely. And I think for a lot of maybe like hyper introverted people, especially even people that are in the security field and all that might, you know, get off on, oh shit, I've lost my ability to do this and whatever, you know, like, this is very appealing. This is something that people would want. I mean, it's like the Blue Apron of dominatrix or of domination, I guess. You know, to where it gets served exactly what you want, right? Blue Apron, you know, the thing that sends you food and you don't have to go to the store or whatever. I mean, this is remarkable. This is literally entirely new markets that this one woman opened up online, entirely new business, a whole new business model. I am absolutely in awe. Now, as you can imagine, based upon the way she talks, and bear with me, everybody, because I'm going to give an overall, you know, view of this at the end of the segment. Okay. You can imagine a lot of people don't like what she's doing, or they hate certain aspects perhaps of her persona, her actual personality, whatever. Okay, she gets a lot of haters. Now, she did a video where it's a message to all the haters. Now, I want to play this video, okay? And this one's about the same length as the one you just heard, so not terribly long, maybe 3 minutes or so. Okay, but I want to play this video, and then we'll really break a lot of this down. But I think this is goddamn fascinating. I mean, way to go, you know? You know, I remember reading it, just real quick, I'll say, I remember reading in Gene Simmons, of course, you know, probably one of, if not my favorite, you know, musical artist of all time. Gene Simmons, where he wrote in Sex, Money, Kiss, tremendous book. Totally recommend it. Okay. In Sex, Money, Kiss, he talks about how, look, you know, technology has just leveled the playing field for everybody, you know, to really, really make it. And of course, that's the big message of Sovryn Tech, right? Is that everybody gets, the individual gets empowered. This is an empowered individual. I mean, Gene Simmons was dead on, and he was talking about exactly this kind of person who, you know, look, technology just leveled the playing field. It doesn't matter if you can lift up, you know, a 30-pound stone anymore or not. You know, now with technology, you can make it, and you can make it from the comfort of your own home. Let's listen to this video to the haters of Mistress Harley.
Hi, I'm Mistress Harley of MistressHarley.com. I'm a professional dominatrix, financial dominatrix, and the one and only fucking tech dom. This message goes out to all the haters that hate me. And there's so many of you, aren't there? So many people on the internet just think I'm a complete fake, that I don't do any of the things that I say that I do. To which I say, honestly, I just say all of the stuff that rappers say, except my stuff is actually true. I actually make guys lock their dicks up. I actually make dudes suck dick for me. I actually make men get on their knees and do everything I want. All because I'm so fucking hot. And you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm not your cup of tea. It doesn't matter if you don't like tattoos or Jewish noses. Quite frankly, none of your thoughts matter, because none of your thoughts account for money in my bank account. But all the cash that ends up in my hand, that's what matters to me. Because ultimately, I'm successful. I stay at home and watch Star Trek all day and go out and drink and eat at the fanciest restaurants while you go to work for a living. You're just another wage slave like everybody else, complaining and angry that girls on the internet make way more money than you in one day than you do in an entire month. I bet it must be really hard for you to have all of that male privilege and still not be able to measure up to real men who don't really have to work very hard because they're already rich, right? It's exactly the same problem you have with me. Well, this is Mistress Harley of MistressHarley.com. This one goes out to the haters, and I'll be laughing all the way to the bank.
Woo! Watching Star Trek all day long, baby. All right. Now, I can imagine a huge chunk of my audience is probably pissed as shit right now, saying, who the hell does she think she is? Blah, 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 blah. Look, part of that is a character, obviously, right? I mean, like, she's selling books. She has tons of books. Look her up on Amazon. Holy shit, she doesn't have one book. She's got a whole series. I mean, when she says she's laughing to the bank, yeah, she's laughing to the bank. And like her attitude, a lot of what she's doing there, I mean, some guys kind of get off on. And even if that's how she really feels, well, fuck, whatever. We're going to talk about like division of thought later on, division of ideology later on in this episode of Sovryn Tech. Okay. But this is just like, I read her story. In fact, it got sent in, by just an amazing, wonderful producer of Sovryn Tech. And I was just like, holy shit, this woman's got it going on. This is incredible. So now for me, I'm not into, I don't need her services. Don't want them. Okay. But what I'll tell you, what honestly gets me hot and bothered about this, and I mean it, it's a turn on, is the fact that that she has, talk about an empowered individual. She really is. The fact that she can do this, that she put this all together, pretty much. I mean, as far as I can tell, based on what I've looked into, and I've looked in, fairly deeply. I mean, she does this on her own. I mean, and it's not like she's obviously not using the best audio equipment in the world either. Okay, but I mean, she made a little empire for herself. Business, entrepreneurial empire, effectively. And I could not be more impressed for an idea that in a million years I would have never considered. I would have never thought of it. No, she's not some grand anarchist or anything, but whatever. If we're only going to talk about anarchists building tech, okay, we'll talk about Signal, but then we're all going to hate, at the smartphones that we use, and so we can't use Signal anyway because we can't get it on the smartphone. Yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying? This show is about a lot more than just anarchism. All right. But my point being here is that I am beyond impressed and beyond turned on at the personal pursuits that this woman's been able to achieve. Just phenomenal. And frankly, I love that goddamned attitude. I think her attitude is just top notch. And I'm a guy. Look, don't take this the wrong way. All right. But I'm going to speak conventionally. I'm just going to say I'm a manly fucking man. Okay, and I don't have to call myself that. There's other people that would. I am a manly fucking man. I take no offense to what she had to say about any of that. I don't understand where people get all offended about that shit anyway. Let them fucking talk. Let them say whatever the hell they want. I mean, part of that is to, get into probably people that are into what she was saying and let it be. I mean, yes, I want people to get beyond perhaps, that maybe that desire for, I don't know. Well, getting into kinks and all that other stuff, that's a whole other subject to unpack, okay? But the bottom line being is I have never seen anything like this. I would have never thought of anything like this. I think it is absolutely remarkable. And in 2016, I mean, she's grown leaps and bounds with the amount of shit that she's had come out. I think her first book came out in 2015. But, I mean, she's taken over the world with much of what she does. And people are into it. And like I said, I can think of people just off the top of my own personal head that would really be into this sort of thing. Like that would turn them on because they would, lose control, over, I don't know, maybe their, whatever, lose control over their digital life, right? The security and all this different stuff. Like, oh shit, I can't go to a porn, and that excites them. Kind of that little bit of fear maybe that excites them to stuff like this. And I'm not saying that that's, again, this isn't a conversation about what's healthy sexuality, what isn't. I'm not getting into all that. I'm just saying that somebody here figured out without really, this isn't like, this is genuinely what some people are into. She's not defrauding anybody. It's a brilliant fucking model. I'm in shock. So Mistress Harley, if you're listening, you are Sovryn Tech Person of the Year 2016. You are one of the most original, just one of the most original acts on the internet, bar none. You are something else. And just in the tech world in general, you are something else. You came up with something that is just mind-blowing to me. Like, and kudos to you for having all that sass, that crass, that just that almost that moxie, I dare say, for having the chutzpah, right? I mean, and obviously it seemed pretty clear that she's Jewish, and for having that chutzpah, to do this and to dominate a category, no pun intended, or all puns intended, please. So if you've never heard, these are the kinds of ideas, I do get a lot of questions. I'm not really the best person to ask, but I get a lot of entrepreneurial questions, and we get into them sometimes on the Sovryn Tech Q&As. Okay. And this is the kind of so off the wall thinking like Mistress Harley did. Okay. And honestly, for her and probably for a lot of people, it's pretty fun, that this is what you want to find out. There are, there's still so many wild new ideas. Or maybe it's, old ideas and new clothes, but whatever, make the new clothes, figure it out. I think it's so, first off, I think a lot of it is so funny. Okay. But second off, like, I think it's dynamite. I can't believe this is the thing, but it's a thing. And I say, baby, rock and roll. And it's been a while since I've been, when I'm on my own anyway, when I have other guests on, whatever. It's been a while since I've been able to talk a real sex tech story, because those are my favorite. And this is one of the best. Hot damn. There's a whole article, a whole write up about her, that I put in link in the show notes for episode 209. And of course, you can also listen to yesterday's Sex and Science Hour to find out about this. In fact, Andreas Antonopoulos had a great name for her, and for her kind. He said, we're going to start calling them pink hats. Instead of a black hat hacker, a white hat hacker, or a gray hat hacker, we have the pink hat hackers. Baby, I support, on Sovryn Tech, we fully support pink hat hackers, baby. Go for it. Woo! I love it. So full credit to Andreas on that one. Anyway, all right, we'll be back with some more Sovryn Tech in just a moment. Now, let me tell you, if you are into control of your own shit, probably what you want to do is, especially online, you want a great web host, a web host that cares about you, especially if, say, you're an activist, or you're an organization, maybe you're a little bit of a rabble rouser on the internet. I'll tell you who you want to work with. Okay. That is agoristhosting.com. That's AGORIST, agoristhosting.com. These guys are the best. I know them personally. They are, just top notch. They care about you. They do everything right. They have a bicontinental, backup hosting. They got the whole thing going on. They work with WordPress, all of it. If you want a website, these are the guys you want to deal with. agorasthosting.com. Or if you want to get into the real free market like OpenBazaar, they do OpenBazaar. I say this all the time. They do OpenBazaar better than OpenBazaar does. They will set you up with an incredible business backend if you want to start doing business on there. So check it out, agorasthosting.com, and I cannot thank them enough for being a supporter and a sponsor of Sovryn Tech. Let's get back to the show.
Internet of Targets.
It is time for Internet of Targets. Now, in Internet of Targets, of course, this is a segment. Internet of Targets is a play on the term Internet of Things, which is a category that, frankly, I want to see die. Let the pink hats rise, baby. Woo! All the Mistress Harley, all the I don't know all the plural forms for dominatrix, all the tech doms. Okay, go for it. Become a thing. All right, but IoT, no, we don't want IoT to become a thing because. As we always say, and I didn't coin this, but as we always say, what does the S in IoT stand for? It stands for security. But guess what? There's no S in IoT. Woo! So that's the problem, is that, I do this segment every week because I am trying to really make people aware about this category, that being Internet of Things, okay, which is like your smart home, and all of these connected, connected light bulbs and connected toasters and microwaves and all this shit, okay, and just try and let you know, look, when you connect all of this, they all become gateways into your digital life. And unless you're hiring Mistress Harley, you don't want people doing that. Frankly, I guess I feel a little bad now because Mistress Harley would probably do bank off of IoT. She's already doing bank. But anyway, so IoT, I want that whole category of IoT to die. And it can. These things do die off. Okay. Certain tech market categories do eventually die off. And that's kind of what I hope for this. Now, this one's interesting. In fact, this delves into kind of the realm of science as well. And it's not right now. It's not exactly IoT, but my concern is that eventually it would be. And just by how it's set up, I think it would happen fast. And hopefully people would, say, "Oh, no, that's not good. I don't want this." But I think you could see how it would end up getting connected and become part of, the Internet of Things, to where this would be connected, say, for, certain data points, statistics, and all that. Now, what it's called the I-band Plus. Okay, and well, how about I just play the audio so you get an idea. This is about 3 minutes. Play the audio so you get an idea of what exactly this device is. But it has to do with your dreams. So let's see, what does it do to those?
What if you could control your dreams? Fly over the Grand Canyon. Visit a beautiful island. Or perhaps go back in time to the age of dinosaurs. Now you can. Meet I-band Plus, the EEG brain-sensing headband for inducing lucid dreams and improving sleep. What is a lucid dream? A lucid dream is any dream in which you become aware that you're dreaming without you actually waking up. Dreams occur almost always when you are in the rapid eye movement phase, also known as the REM phase of your sleep. In REM phase, your brain activity is different than in the other phases of your sleep cycle. I-band Plus accurately senses this dream phase by monitoring variations in your brain waves. Once I-band Plus senses this dream phase, it plays audio-visual cues. These subtle external stimuli of light patterns via the LEDs on I-band Plus and sound appear as anomalies in your dream, making you aware that you are dreaming without them waking you up. Once you are lucid in a dream, you can take control of your dream actions and consciously reshape the dream to fulfill any fantasy. Your wildest desires unrestrained by the laws of physics or society. Lucid dreams are vivid and highly immersive. Once in lucid dream, you enter a virtual world where everything you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell is as authentic as reality. Lucid dreaming has been researched scientifically. Many psychologists and researchers have recognized that lucid dreams can help with artistic creativity, problem solving, improving sports and language skills, and can even help people prone to nightmares to get their fears under control. Sleep is also very important to restore energy reserves and strengthen the immune system. Even minimal sleep loss affects mood, productivity, ability to handle stress, and even body weight. iBand Plus tracks your sleep, indicates sleep quality, and gives feedback on improvement. iBand Plus also has the most advanced smart alarm feature that wakes you up with simulated natural sunlight and sounds at the most optimum period of sleep cycle, so that you wake up fresh every time. iBand Plus Headband communicates with iBand Plus app on your smartphone via Bluetooth, so you can conveniently check your sleep statistics and improvement suggestions. You can even customize your iBand Plus from this app to set LED light patterns and the brightness, as well as the audio cues. Developers can use our open platform to create amazing new experiences. With future software updates, iBand Plus could be connected to numerous smart devices in your home to simplify your daily life.
Dreams and sleep are vital for optimal health and happiness. So we started working on iBand Plus with the goal to enable everyone to control their dreams and to enable everyone to gain insight into their sleep. We went through several prototypes to realize the best iBand Plus design. We are really excited to take iBand Plus from the prototyping stage to the superb finished product. We want to hear from you to know your ideas and improvement suggestions. Be the world's first to own iBand Plus. Back our campaign and help us make iBand Plus a reality. Thank you.
So the iBand Plus, woo boy. Yeah, where do we even start with this? Now, of course, it being IoT, I mean, they admitted, right in the audio there from their, kind of their pitch video that, yeah, in the future, it can end up connecting with other smart devices and other smart things. And it already connects to your phone. It has an app and all this. So it falls into that, even though, like, at the moment, it wouldn't seem to be transmitting anything, outside of, locally between your phone and it. But, of course, who's going to collect the database on sleep statistics and all that. Now, that's one of the, this is where... So some sleep trackers are actually legit. Now, Fitbits are not, okay? Like most of the wearables that you can buy, say even like on whatever popular venues are out there, those generally don't work as far as being a good sleep tracker. We've already talked about that, and how fitness trackers have, are sometimes have wildly inaccurate data included with them. This is more of a dedicated device for sleep, so I think that it may work really well as a sleep tracker. But then it gets into the other aspects of this. Now, lucid dreaming is... some people are skeptical of it, and really the skepticism isn't that the events that are happening. To define exactly what a lucid dream is, there's a few criteria, but the basic gist is that you're aware that you're dreaming, and then you're also aware that you have control of the dream. You also have memory functions. You're aware of who you are. It's pretty much, the idea of a lucid dream is like a biological holodeck in your mind. Okay, that's what a lucid dream is, if you don't know. And those are very specific criteria. Now, some people argue against, saying, well, but that's not really a lucid dream. That's just this very rare kind of unique type of dream or something. It's not, it's not like a thing that you can actually say make happen, or that you really maybe have any control over. Because the only way, and it's a fair skepticism to bring up, because lucid dreaming itself, like, how do you know that lucid dreams are possible? There's really only one way you know, because somebody told you. But that's terrible evidence, right? No matter how many people tell you, that's terrible evidence for something like this. Now, you could say, well, there's a certain beta waves that are going on, it's REM sleep, blah, blah, there's this increase and all that. But really, that doesn't say that that's exactly, that you somehow have, like, control of this dream. So lucid dreaming in and of itself is something to be very skeptical about, very, very skeptical about, just based upon how do you get the evidence. Well, there's only one way, and it's it's not a good way. It's not really evidence by anybody else's metric. It's just because somebody said that they could do that. Anyway, so lucid dreaming in itself is kind of an issue. Now, even if you could do that, even if this did everything that it said, and I don't believe that it can. Okay, and we don't need to get into, what do the LEDs do? Because kind of the idea is, so ways that people have in the past talked about how to induce lucid dreaming is that you need to be like micro awake. Like you need to be a little bit awake, not exactly like totally asleep. Now, that's a condition that certainly, I can say that I think happens, and that's a little more provable, where you're not exactly in a deep sleep. There are different types of sleep, and you can prove how those, come into being effectively. Okay, but, and I'm not, I guess I feel like I've had moments where I've had lucid dreams. And I know we've talked about it on Sex and Science Hour, and some people have tried to induce them themselves, and they say they've had varying degrees of success or whatever. Maybe there's things you can do that allow for that. I don't know. Again, it's also, just assuming that lucid dreaming is actually like a totally real thing. But the other part of this that's concerning for me, and why I want to bring it up, is because it is, if not now, in the very near future, this is effectively an IoT device, and it is going to be connected to the big bad internet and perhaps to other apps that talked about how there's a developer kit or whatever. How long do you think it will be before, let's say this thing actually worked? How long do you think it would be before advertisers want to start injecting shit into your dream? Now, you could say you have control of that dream, but that's kind of the thing, right? It's like it's programmable to allow for different effects of what to do. Like the LEDs are supposed to be able to create a different effect within your dream and all this. I mean, my point being is, like, that has to be so appealing. There's an old saying that the only time you can get away from advertising is while you're asleep. You think advertisers don't know that? You think they don't want to do something about that? In fact, they have. We've talked about this on Sovryn Tech years ago, where there have been patents pushed that were all about how can we get people to dream, or how can we get people to see advertising while they're sleeping. This is something, it's creepy as fuck. Well, guess what? Most advertising agencies are. I mean, they really are. I'm very picky how I do my advertising and all that, and I've been an ad exec. I know the deal, and if I ever worked for a company that's how they wanted to do advertising, I'd say, fuck you, see you later, and I'd be a whistleblower in no time, letting people know what the hell, and I'd take the hit. That is a terrifying concept, and I think that might be kind of the real goal of this sort of thing. First off, I mean, I don't think it works, because again, those advertising companies have been pushing patents, but they never actually come out with a working product, I guess, at least as far as we know. But if they had that kind of breakthrough, I kind of feel like we would have heard about it. And if companies that put billions of dollars into a technology like that cannot find ways to control what happens in your dreams, sorry, I don't think a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or crowdfund device it has that figured out. I just don't believe it. I mean, that's kind of my evidence against it, but then, I mean, also there's evidence against the very notion of lucid dreaming in the first place. So, yeah, and I would see that as a matter of time. I mean, maybe this is some kind of test bed for that sort of idea, and eventually they will, maybe this company making, the iBand Plus or whatever will sell it off to advertising companies on how to do this. It's got to be the ultimate goal, I mean, I understand, like, I get that. Okay. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if you could, at night you had control of your dream and you could just be really happy because you had this, amazing dreamland. I mean, and I know some people would want to get dystopian and say, well, will people just always want to sleep? Will they just keep taking, I don't know, melatonin or something to fall asleep and just keep putting their iBand Plus on or whatever and stay in dream world? Maybe. I mean, that's kind of the thing too, is that virtual reality can actually do this while you're awake. Like, I mean, you don't have to, and that's, I know that's because that's another aspect too. And I'm going kind of all over the place, is that people talk about how we could figure out how to induce lucid dreaming, we could eliminate nightmares. However, even that, even the whole idea of dream control, I think has issues in that a lot of time, I mean, the nature of dreams, I mean, I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist or anything, and so maybe I'm not the most qualified to talk about this sort of stuff. But what I understand, and what a lot of people theorize dreams are all about, could be a way for your body and your mind to work out various traumas that need to be worked out. And so sometimes I theorize, I think, and I'm not the only one, obviously, but that dreams are a way of your brain, trying to work some shit out. And if you suddenly turn off all that ability and everything's just happy-go-lucky all the time, I think you're going to create traumas around happiness, frankly. Like your brain goes through certain processes that, I think that they're important. I mean, and granted, yeah, I'm a person that I usually don't even remember my dreams. Like, I mean, you have them, but I barely ever remember them. But regardless, like they're there for, they're doing something. So you might find this of interest. Personally, especially with it being connected to the Internet of Things, I think its ultimate goal would be to inject certain things perhaps into your dreams more so than just something that allows you to, have total control of your dreams. So I don't buy it. I don't think that this is legit. I think this is total like placebo kind of nonsense. But maybe you feel differently. I don't know. Anyway, we'll be back with some more Sovryn Tech. Don't buy into this category Internet of Things. If you want one of these things, have it be something that's not connected to your smartphone or whatever, and that just supposedly does the job. Just stop with all of your devices being connected to shit. I mean, especially, what happens if a hacker gets into your head through this? Well, we're talking about dreams, and I think a lot of people have or would like to dream about gold and silver and being surrounded by it. Well, guess what? It can be a reality. What I want you to do is check out one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best businesses in the world, not just the best in precious metals. Okay. That is Roberts and Roberts Brokerage, longtime sponsor of Sovryn Tech. Cannot thank them enough for that. But if you want to get your hands at great prices, some great precious metals, gold, platinum, silver, palladium, whatever you want, coinage, I mean, you name it. You want to go to Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Okay, the website, gold.zog.ninja. That will take you right to them. They're going to hook you up. I mean, you want to talk about great customer service, they've got it. And to sweeten the deal, this is the best part, in my opinion, is that they recognize what actually a lot of other people are recognizing now, that Bitcoin is money. And so they will take your Bitcoin. They are a Bitcoin preferred business, in fact, for gold, silver, platinum, palladium, whatever they got. They'll take your Bitcoin for it, baby. Can you beat that deal? That's, that diversify your value and wealth. I think that's a fine thing to do. So gold.zog.ninja is the website, or you can go to rrbi.co. Let them know that the Golden Stallion sent you. Believe me, they listen to the show. They're going to know who you're talking about. Roberts and Roberts Brokerage, baby. Go get it. Thanks for sponsoring Sovryn
Tech History.
It is time for Tech History, where we're gonna have a little fun with this one. And Tech History is where I cover a certain historical aspect of tech. Recently, we did what got me into tech. We talked about the Commodore 64, which is arguably the most important computer ever built in a way. I mean, obviously it wasn't the first, but as far as the PC revolution, it was a huge deal in the revolution, maybe the most important device of them all, and had great games too. But this week we're going to talk about, and this is why in the beginning of the show, in the opening of the show, I included that little clip about how to have cyber sex. There was a great article done up on Vice over a year ago. I don't know how I missed it, but it talks about AOL Instant Messenger, or AOL, or AIM. Everybody called it AIM. And long after AOL kind of fell from prominence, even though some people have AOL email accounts, which, okay, long after that, I mean, AIM stuck around for a good long while. I mean, I guess technically it still kind of exists, but it was still prominent and popular. Before there was Facebook Messenger, before there was, all kinds of things, like AIM was the deal. And AIM was what really made AOL, gave it kind of its cross-platform nature. I mean, it was just being used for a really long time. And it's an important thing to put into consideration, especially in the nature of, kind of the communication age, of the kind of the byproduct of the internet age that we live in. So this is from Vice. Of course, the link is in the show notes. And it's how AOL Instant Messenger shaped the sexuality of a generation. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's chunks in here that I want to get into, and then I want to talk about it a bit. For those of us who came of age in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the internet was a wild and exciting world of rudimentary websites, slow-loading pornography, and the subversive thrill of spending 3 to 5 hours illegally downloading a CD you couldn't afford to buy at Tower Records. Stallion breaking in for a second right there. Oh, that is such a beautiful depiction of what the internet was like, and it was great. Woo! I loved it. In fact, I remember downloading WAV files on a 14.4K modem. Oh yeah, downloading WAV files from sites of theme songs for various TV shows. I mean, even the WAV files were. I mean, the WAV file was high quality, but obviously the source was shitty quality at the time, probably from a VHS or something. And, oh man, it would take a half hour to download one, but I remember my buddies and we'd run into my bedroom, with my little 486DX at the time, and would just be, of course, I was using Prodigy as my gateway to the internet at that moment. And And it's like, oh yeah, is the theme song for G.I. Joe done? All right. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, it was just, we'd go nuts. So I totally understand that. But anyway, reading on with the story, mention the service to anyone through it all, there was AOL Instant Messenger, an easy to use and highly customizable application that hid a wealth of features beneath its utilitarian facade. Before social media, before we started assuming that someone was monitoring our every online move, AIM was a place where so many of us expressed ourselves, made friends, and experienced our first sexual awakenings. Oh. Mention the service to anyone who used it during their formative years, and you'll get stories of away messages that were supposed to be clever, online boyfriends and girlfriends that ended up never existing. I dated a Gap model from Florida who came to be in all of the brand's commercials, too young to realize how astoundingly untrue this actually was, and nostalgia about the custom sounds you could create to let you know when specific members of your buddy list came online. Released in 1997, the service was an instant hit. AIM still exists today, though it hasn't been updated since 2012. In the age before MySpace, before every teen in the world had a cell phone, there was no better way to make plans with your friends, arrange drug deals for after fifth period, and discover that while you probably weren't ready to have sex with another person, you could absolutely fake the sexual prowess of Wilt Chamberlain with some guy you met in a chat room entitled M for Older M. In the late 90s and early aughts, the word cybersex felt cool, maybe a little dangerous, and definitely futuristic. But all it really meant was pretending to bang strangers on the internet. Sometimes you'd write moan, and sometimes you'd inform the person of exactly what you were doing to them. Quote, I'm sucking on the tip of your penis, end quote, I once wrote as a 14-year-old virgin. While presumably pleasuring yourself, data, and this is written by a guy, by the way, so in case you're wondering. So obviously homosexual and right on. In the age before MySpace, before every teen in the world, we already read that. Okay, while presumably pleasuring yourself, data about teens engaging in the behavior during these years is scarce, but conservative estimates suggested that 30% of internet-using adults engaged in cybersex. Quote, I had an internet sex addiction, end quote, Jennifer Martin joked to me at 27. Martin's days of cybering with, and that's exactly the term they use, Stallion breaking in, with cybering, I love it, with strangers are over. But she claims that as a young teen, she was scarily proficient in the art of making guys on the internet come with a few taps on the keyboard. Growing up in a religious household where any talk of sex was verboten, Martin described herself as an awkward kid who moved around a lot and didn't have many friends outside the computer. Quote, I played a lot of text-based role-playing games, end quote, she told me, explaining how she got involved with AIM. Quote, eventually people said, eventually people said, quote, I want to talk to you outside the game, end quote. I was this overweight, insecure girl, but behind the screen I could be whatever. It was sort of this weird place for me to come of sexual awakening, end quote. And because Jesus doesn't watch your chat windows, Martin soon began experimenting with cybering, which for her was as much of a writing exercise as anything else. It wasn't the sexual release that drew Martin to cybering, but it was the attention and validation of the guys she cybered with, many of whom would come back for more. Some even asked for her phone number, something Martin's religious father wasn't too happy about, but she couldn't be stopped. She said, quote, if anyone would come and flirt with me online, it would invariably lead to cybersex, end quote. Martin's activities weren't unusual. AIM allowed young people to be anyone they wanted without requiring names, pictures, or identity verification that could be tracked back to real life. For many, cybersex offered the allure of a safe space in which one could experiment and express their innermost desires. In 2008, an article in the Village Voice detailed the many reasons why cybersex might be preferable to actual sex with another human, including convenience, safety, and the ability to try out new things one might not otherwise. Now, that's interesting. Again, there's a whole lot to this article that they break down. But that kind of speaks to sort of the safety that really, like, the tech dom, that Mistress Harley delivers to people, right? Like, there's that appeal to the safety of quote unquote cyber sex, or maybe cyber doming, or whatever. And I just thought this was fascinating. I'll tell you something. And I talked with a few ladies about this, and all of them pretty much agreed, because I've complained actually oftentimes on Sovryn Tech. Okay. I have said that, look, cybersex just seems to be dead, and God damn it, I wish it wasn't, because it was so much fun. It was so inventive, so creative. I mean, if you get with the right person doing cybersex, I mean, you are in for a hot goddamn time. I mean, a hot time, or like that video said at the beginning of the show. people who've mastered the art of one-handed typing. So anyway, where was I going with that? So people that I showed it to, they said, look, that 30% number, that 30% of people were cybersexing it or were cybering at the time, there's no way it was that low. They said it had to be way, way higher because they were engaging in it right and left. And I think a lot of people were. I had other people say, oh yeah, people I asked that said, yeah, that was my extramarital activity was doing that. And so it allowed people to get their freak on. And I think that's a really, really powerful thing. And I think it's something that at the end of the day is going to be the killer app for virtual reality. And that's part of why I think virtual reality is actually going to beat going to be more important than augmented reality, because we're going to get back to that new frontier that the internet was at the time in the 1990s and early aughts, say pre 2003, where people are, in VR are going to be able to cyber again, and do so in an incredibly safe way, and now also have a visual aid, even though I think there's something a little more appealing to just having it be text, to where your imagination literally runs wild, all the way. I really think there's something to that. In 1997, this was the thing. Now, it wasn't just AIM. I mean, you had IRC, you had ICQ, you had a bunch of different things that allowed, people to do this. And it was definitely the logical extension of, phonography or, phone sex. Phonography is a Britney Spears song, unreleased, but don't ask me why I know that. So this is a huge part of what, AIM, I don't think people realize that AIM, while it had a lot of other interesting features, and eventually, it ended up, I think, doing file transfers. I mean, all the things that you'd expect from a more modern messenger. People don't realize that just that messaging platform and that platform alone, it wasn't in the browser window. This was a separate app sitting on its own that people could download for free. You didn't have to have, a paid AOL account to access it. Just how revolutionary that really was. I mean, because IRC, admittedly, yes, it was a bit technical. It took a little work to do that. But AIM, you just logged in and away you go. Yahoo Messenger was another one that was a really big deal. And I I can't help but wonder if AIM, if these messaging apps are really, kind of what put the smartphone, like that's really what the smartphone has become, is it's AIM on a device. And is that what put smartphones over the top? Is that what made it so ubiquitous? Is that, was that the kind of the killer feature, was this ability to connect with very popular services that everybody had, whether they had a smartphone or not, that are on the desktop and can sync across and everything. And maybe I just missed the boat, and I don't know how I missed the boat. I'm annoyed as hell that apparently because I had a ton of people tell me, oh no, I'm still having cyber sex. And it's like, well, what about me? No, I jest. But I mean, I'm glad that it's still a thing, but this is, in a time, the 90s and the early aughts, you really had, conservative, we talk about culture wars and whatever else. Conservatives I think were definitely running the show. And it's amazing that this technology existed that completely subverted all culture. It didn't matter. It subverted everything, and it allowed you to live up to your wildest dreams. You talk about individual empowerment. These chat apps, AIM just happened to be the one that was so popular, but they're really what powered that. And there's something to this, and I think it's something that we don't want to let go of, that ability to, to text, to very quietly communicate with people, that can be very much in your own little world, like the little AIM window, or now if you're using Line or Signal or whatever, on your smartphone. It's a very, very powerful personal thing. And the brilliance to come up with that people were like, because at the time, everything was kind of getting baked into the web browser a bit, and even that's still going on today. But to say, no, we want this just one little window over here where we can, type and connect with people and get cybering, baby. Woo. Yeah, and in fact, I wonder if so many of the creative things online you see that are sexual, like how much is that because they were able to get expressed on AIM? Was it that freedom of expression that allowed for all kinds of wild art to finally come? Or is it what allowed for so much of the technological development? Was for people, I'm reminded of a few different books. One of them, of course, is The Secret Garden by Nancy Friday, which is kind of notorious. But I'm reminded of books that, like to talk about how sex is kind of like the center of all creativity. Like that's where all creativity kind of comes from. And you don't have to believe that, and I'm not saying I 100% believe that either, okay? And it doesn't have to 100% come from sex either. Maybe that's just one avenue or something like that. But I really wonder, like, how many wild things do we not know came out of an AIM window where somebody was having cybersex, some wild idea that they had that turned into who knows what. So the history of AIM, as much as I hate AOL, as much as people properly hated AOL back then, let's all give a huge thank you to AIM and what I think, frankly, opened up a ton of minds in a very, very real, great anti-cultural way. I love it. So AIM, here's to you. You know, really, 97, we're in 2017. 20 years later, baby, I think you changed the world. That one little app changed everything. So right on. We'll be back with some more Sovryn Tech. Now, baby, I got to tell you, when I want to keep an eye on things, all things going on in the cryptocurrency space, when I want to keep an eye on prices, when I want to know about the new tools, the new wallets, or what are the best ones to use, all of that stuff, or when I want to get social when it comes to cryptocurrency, I go to cryptocompare.com. Oh man, I mean, I love this website. I'm not kidding when I say I leave it open 24/7 on my big rig. I mean, it's ready for whenever a question comes up for me for Sovryn Tech about something in crypto or whatever. I'm always checking that out, and just to keep an eye on things, just to know what's going on. To keep fresh, keep that flavor going. I mean, and they list off everything. Bitcoin, all your altcoins. They got you covered. So I want you to check out cryptocompare.com, and I cannot thank them enough for being a sponsor of Sovryn Tech. All right, let's get back to the show.
The climax.
Whoa! Look at that. While I'm recording, Mistress Harley just followed me back on Twitter. Yeah, baby. And she has 12.2 thousand followers. And she's only following 1,400 people. I must meet her criteria of being a real man. Ooh. Anyway, whatever. I love it. It is time for the climax, where I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. And I actually want to kind of break this down into two separate, I guess we'll say, segments. Maybe I could get Mistress Harley on as a guest on Sovryn Tech, or maybe Sex and Science Hour. Boy, wouldn't that be a hell of a time? Anyway, all right. Damn clever woman, I tell you. So yeah, I want to break this up into two. So first thing I want to do is I want to go down a list of best ofs. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the best ofs, and then I have a subject that I want to break into by request of a Sovryn Tech patron. Actually, he wanted to make sure that it got out to the kind of the larger audience. So first things, we got our best of 2016. Of course, we did our person of the year earlier, and I know I'm going to get a ton of heat from that. Whatever. It's my show. Best movie. This some of these answers probably won't surprise. Maybe a couple of them will. I don't know. But best movie, I'll tell you, I got to give best movie of 2016. In fact, I'm about to go catch Return of Xander Cage, new XXX movie here in a bit. But the best movie of 2016 would be, or 2016, I got to give it to Star Trek Beyond. I was just floored at how good that movie was. I mean, I was so pleased. Not that I've been disappointed with really any Star Trek movie so much, but this one, like, they hit all the right notes. They hit the right stride. Everybody was looking good. I thought it was fantastic. Just a great movie. I did a full-on review of this. I also did a review. I did a ranking on Patreon. If you're a Sovryn Tech patron, I did a ranking of all the Star Trek movies, from 1 to whatever. And Beyond was probably my favorite of the Kelvin timeline. Like, I think it's so good. Now, in line with that, what was the best soundtrack of the year? I also give that to Star Trek Beyond, because Michael Giacchino, this guy's so good. I mean, and I love his soundtrack he did for Rogue One. I mean, Star Wars could have easily, like, if there was a franchise of the year, frankly, I mean, of course, hand it to Star Wars. They've had a hell of a 2017. Okay, but anyway, the score for Star Trek Beyond, especially the 2-disc version. Now, I got the 2-disc version. They only made 3. It's not available digitally, or, through a digital store anyway. There's only 3,000 copies of it made. I happen to have one of the physical copies of it because I thought the soundtrack was so good in this movie. And it delivers, especially the 2-disc version, because the 2-disc version, you can get the 1-disc version just about anywhere. And I haven't seen a torrent yet of the 2-disc version either. But in the 2-disc version, there's some what you would call orchestral suites of certain themes, including the Star Trek theme, kind of the new one that Michael Giacchino's been using throughout the past 3 movies, but also there's the Yorktown theme, which is just so beautiful. Holy shit. I get goosebumps when I listen to that. So good. Man. So yeah, the 2-disc version of Star Trek Beyond, definitely soundtrack of the year. So good. Just track for track. I mean, you are in for an adventure, whether you saw the movie or not, frankly, I think. Best comic. Again, this might sound boring to you, but I'm also going to give that to Star Trek. Star Trek Boldly Go, which is only like 3 or 4 issues in, which is a sequel to Star Trek Beyond, has been doing great. And I'll tell you why. Spoiler alerts. In Star Trek Boldly Go, they encounter the Borg. And they are doing such a great job. Now, most people don't know that the comic books for the Kelvin timeline that IDW releases for Star Trek are canon. Like, there's references in all 3 movies to events that happen in the comic books from IDW. So, these are worthy reading. And this Star Trek Boldly Go takes place right after Star Trek Beyond. So there is no Enterprise because it's still being fixed up, right? Because we're going to have the Enterprise A, even though you see it get completed at the end of Star Trek Beyond, this kind of takes place in between that time of when it's getting completed. And so, you get these, and a lot of characters from, that you might remember from other Star Trek incarnations that make an appearance in this. But the inclusion of the Borg and the way they encounter the Borg, I mean, it was just so well done. It was really, really cool. The artistry is great. The only thing I wish they would bring in, Carol Marcus, which they haven't done yet. I mean, there was an explanation why she wasn't in Beyond, but I love that character. And I really, really would like to have more of her, especially in the comic book. So we'll see. I think the next issue, they're doing a Jayla origin story, which is really cool. I am totally on board for reading that. So Star Trek Boldly Go in just a few issues is really, really taking the cake. Tank Girl Gold, which came out this year, huge fan of Tank Girl comics. That has been really good. I mean, there's a ton of series I could go down the line that have been great this year. The new Uber, not the car company, the comic. Divinity 3 has been awesome. I mean, there's tons out there that are really, really good this year. 2017's been an awesome year for comic books. In fact, I almost gave it to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Boom Studios. Don't laugh. It is a great comic book. I mean, and it is a far more adult version of Power Rangers than, but it pays proper homage, and is a sequel to, MMPR, kind of the original series. So just great shit that they're doing that. Even the miniseries with Pink. So I kind of wanted to give it to that, but I was just so riveted reading, and Star Wars, some of the Star Wars comics have been good this year too, but I was so riveted reading Boldly Go. Like, I just couldn't wait for the next issue to come out. So I give that comic of the year. Obviously, because it was inspired by the movie of the year. I mean, kind of makes sense. Best TV show. Here's another one that might not surprise people, but I'm giving it to Star Wars Rebels, and I'll tell you why. Or I'll give you part of why. There have been some episodes that were duds. Every show has episodes that were duds. Most of the great shows that you're probably thinking of right now actually came out in 2015, like at the end of 2015. So they're not really like it's tough to call them as a 2016 show. Like, if I could call The Expanse a 2016 show, I would. Okay, because that is just the best thing on television right now, no question. Okay, but as far as like what's in 2017, what started in 2017, and granted it was season 3, I think Rebels is just knocking it out of the park. And when they said that they were going to bring on Thrawn onto the show, that was a bigger announcement than almost any other. I mean, that might be the biggest announcement and the biggest reaction that you could get out of an audience next to announcing episode 7. Seriously, it was just massive. Now, they haven't been using him as much as they should in the first part of season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. But I'm telling you now, I mean, they are, especially like today's episode that came out, they are kicking it up 20 notches. It is so damn good. And I love, like, with Thrawn being in it, oh man, when like he has like this orchestra, or not orchestra, this organ, like an organ theme, like with a musical instrument, the organ. that is so creepy, and it does such a great job. They are doing amazing things with what kind of has to limit itself by being a kid show. But I mean, and it's funny. I mean, I think Rebels is just doing a phenomenal work. And I'm actually pretty hopeful that we'll get more Princess Leia in it at some point. And of course, if you saw the trailer for the second half of season 3, we know we're going to get some Obi-Wan Kenobi. Man, does that look badass. Taking on Darth Maul, please. So, all right, so let's switch it up. Best album. Now, this is one that might not come out, that you might not know about. I almost gave it to Metallica's Hardwired for Self-Destruction, because I think the 3-disc version of that is a phenomenal album, particularly the 3-disc version. But I'm giving it to 6 a.m. this year with Prayers for the Damned, Volume 1. Now, they did a double disc, or like not a double disc. They did a double album release this year. They released Volume 1, which was Prayers for the Damned. Then they released Volume 2, which was Prayers for the Blessed. Prayers for the Blessed is a fine album. It is nowhere near as good as Prayers for the Damned. I mean, I just so readily give that to 6 a.m. 6 a.m., of course, is the band, made by Nikki Sixx and DJ Ashba and James Scott Michael, right? Just awesome. I mean, I love Nikki Sixx. I'm a huge Motley Crue fan, but such a different attitude than what's out there. Kind of corny. It can get kind of cheesy at times, like a dark cheesy, but I really like that. I think it's a really unique flavor. So Prayers for the Damned, and in particular, the song Rise is really good, and then the title track, Prayers for the Damned. Both of those songs, just two of the best songs.